As we all know by now, Caltrain has successfully begun phasing out their gallery cars and shifting over to EMUs. But what if I told you that there's a place somewhere in the US where gallery cars are EMUs? It is of course the mighty, windy Chicagoland, a place where foamers assemble from far to witness the last EMDs in the world, a city that loves them and worships them, and will never, I repeat, never modernize, a place where gallery cars still rule the land, a passenger car designed to be the most inconvenient for anybody except the conductors who collect the tickets. So come join me as we ride aboard Metra Electric, the one place where gallery cars are somehow EMUs. Yes, I know it's weird, just stick with me. So let's get situated first of all. This is of course one of the many lines on Metra, which is the commuter rail service around Chicago. Across the 11 lines there are nearly 500 miles of track, but just because they have a lot of track doesn't mean it's very good. A lot of the lines have pretty abysmal off-peak frequency, some don't even run on the weekend, but even among this, there are a couple good lines. The BNSF line in particular is a fan favorite, and Metra Electric might just be the most advanced of all the lines. It is of course the only one with electric service, and it has 3 separate branches, all of which combined mean that the line has very good frequency throughout the day, including through to the weekend. As we will see later, Metra Electric's gallery cars are also pretty good as far as gallery cars go, even though that's kind of scraping the barrel. But let's get started here in Millennium Park. Just a couple blocks east of the Loop, this is one of the most iconic destinations in all of Chicago, and one of many along the Lake Michigan waterfront. There's a lot of cool things to see here, but the one that gets the most clicks on Instagram, of course, is the beach. Oh, that's a bummer. Anyway, right underneath the park is Millennium Station, which is where Metra Electric service originates. The station is completely underground, and it's quite a minefield to navigate. It's not very well signed above ground, which means finding an entrance can take a while. And I think there's only 1 or 2 ticket machines in the entire station. Not to mention, I found them really hard to figure out. I did my trip off-peak on a weekday, and you can see here that there is a decent amount of departures throughout the day. But here's our first glimpse of the gallery cars, and you'll notice that they have level boarding, which is not the case with gallery cars in the rest of the metro system. And as I often like to do, I headed upstairs, though this is why I don't like gallery cars. The stairs are super narrow, which makes it accessibility hell. But here we start to see some of the amenities that these metro trains have, such as digital next train screens, which the gallery cars on Caltrain didn't have. And here we are pulling out of the gloomy Millennium Station. Let's get this journey started. Our first stop is Van Buren Street, still in downtown Chicago and very close to the Loop. But then we start to emerge closer to street level and get some pretty neat views of the last bit of the skyline. You might wonder, what's with the green tint on the video? That's because you might have noticed that the windows on these trains actually have a bit of a green stain to them, which I do not like at all. Now these tracks, of course, don't just carry Metra Electric, but also the South Shoreline Interurban that goes across the border into South Bend, Indiana. I got off here at 55th Street. Wait, no, 55th, 56th, and 57th Streets. That's right, the station is so big that it gets named after 3 separate cross streets. There are quite a few things to see here, such as the University of Chicago, Hyde Park, no, not that Hyde Park, as well as, most importantly, the Museum of Science and Industry, which I actually spent some time in. And it turns out this museum actually does a good job of communicating transit access. And oh look, another train. Quick walk down the street later and I'm back at the station. And what do you know? This happened. There's another one I missed. Now, as I mentioned, Metra Electric has 3 separate branches, all of which run hourly off-peak, and this station is before the point where the branches split, so you would hope that the trains here are spaced apart every 20 minutes. Sadly, that's not the case, and I ended up in one of the longer windows, which meant I had to wait for around 40 minutes for the next train. Fortunately though, there is a waiting room, but the lack of a real clock face pattern is a bit of a hindrance to this system. Back, I sat on the downstairs level to check out this feature of the trains, the seats that slide like Sydney trains. And yes, you saw that correctly, the seats have power outlets. This part of the line is actually really close to the Chicago L's Red Line, particularly the Dan Ryan branch in the south. This is the line that you take to get to Soldier Field, which is of course the home of the Chicago Bears in the NFL. It was also supposed to be a 2026 World Cup stadium, but it didn't quite make the final cut. Which is a bummer because some places that did get selected have much worse transit access, if any at all. But here we are, back at Millennium Station, having ridden Metra Electric, not the whole way, but enough to get a taste of it. And I think it's a good service. Ridership was pretty strong, despite being off-peak on a weekday. But if this is a good line on Metra, then I don't even want to imagine what the other lines are like, which I didn't get a chance to ride in Chicago. Now, people often say that the Chicago L is frozen in time, and if that's true, then Metra might as well be the Jurassic Park of transit, with its antiquated fleet, laughable schedules in some places, and the fact that it has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 separate terminals in downtown Chicago, none of which are connected to an L station. It just means that if you want to make a cross-regional trip in Chicago, you're going to have to do a bit of walking and an annoying transfer to the L. Regional rail in the US has a lot of work to do to adapt to the current state of affairs. The MBTA commuter rail is doing a great job at it, and the LA Metrolink wants to emulate the MBTA, as was covered by transit YouTuber DJ Pete's sake. And Caltrain of course got its big boost with electric service arriving. But yeah, Metra, it's not looking good, bro.